Welcome back to Tripod, the audio advertising podcast. In this episode, why it's vital to fit the creative to the context and format of the audio media you're using. Okay, so we've looked at the various audio opportunities for advertisers, linear radio, digital audio, podcasts. We discussed creative overall in the last episode. Has creative kept up with the development of the audio landscape and all these different opportunities? And we touched on budgets earlier. Are there still people, I think I know the answer to this, who are producing one ad and pushing it out everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should they be?
I know, because as we've talked about here as well, there is so many more opportunities out there in the audio market. It's not a one size fits all. It is about understanding what platform you're going to be going out on and how the audience is going to be engaging with that platform. You know, listening to digital audio or linear radio in your car is a very different experience sonically than listening to a podcast in your headphones. And, you know, if you have a piece of creative that's created for the linear radio environment, you know, often that could be, as Howard said, you know, you put the radio on and you could be doing other things while you're listening to that. So it has to have a certain level of volume. You have to kind of shout a little bit to be heard. Putting that into a podcast is going to jar the experience. You know, people don't listen to a podcast to have people shout at them. Well, certainly not me anyway. But in you know, when those ads arrive in a podcast, you don't want to have that negative experience where you know it's kind of knocked your eardrums a little bit. You have to be mindful of the creative that's going out and what platform it's being used on.
We touched on this in season 1, our creative season, about that can be done all in the same recording session, and you know, a slightly different mix done for digital audio or podcast, slightly different read by the voice. So there's not really a budget issue there, is there?
No, and I think audiences will understand as well that they would feel more affinity for a brand if they're talking to them on that level across different platforms in different ways. I think that's a really smart way to engage with an audience, rather than, you know, and advertisers do it across other mediums as well. They'll do potentially a different TV or visual ad, and that will go out on YouTube compared to the one that they'd do at the cinema, or one that they would do for, you know, the Centre Break at Coronation Street. All these things have their own place and that understanding of it. And I think audiences understand that, and you know, I don't know what words I'm looking for here, be receptive to it, to understand that this brand is talking to them on that level, depending on how they're engaging with the mediums that they're listening to or watching.
I mean, the advertiser just needs to, well, we need to think on behalf of the advertiser about where their content is being heard, and it has to fit into the context of that content, doesn't it?
Completely. And I think the other important thing is looking at kind of not just probably the context of the advert, but also that kind of call to action. I think we talk to clients a lot about across different audio kind of platforms. So we might have a similar ad running across different kind of like audio platforms, for example, live radio, targeted digital audio, or podcast as well from a spot point of view. But actually thinking about how the call to action across those 3 different types of audio to a certain extent should differ across those. So we spoke about, obviously, with live radio, yes, you know, you might think of a search term that's easy for someone to remember, because they can easily remember that and sort of think about, okay, next time I'm at home, I'm going to search that. You think about podcast, potentially you're listening to that on your mobile's closer to you, so how do you kind of change that call to action for more mobile-based platform, like listener or more mobile-based platform, because they can obviously access that or go to a website straight from their mobile. So thinking about ways you do that. Or thinking about, you know, if you're hearing that ad on the smart speaker, for example. So if that ad's playing out on the smart speaker, and this is relatively easy for suppliers to do, they'll know that ad's playing out on the smart speaker. So the smart speaker version of the ad can play out, and that could be as simple, you know, for an FMCG brand, as simple as like add so-and-so to my basket now. That's like something that can just be done relatively easy, and you're almost making a direct. It's almost kind of like the advert is still doing the same job and creating that awareness, but why not add that, just that call to action that's right for that platform in terms of, okay, and that's straight into your Amazon shopping list. So you're right, it's I think audio years ago, in terms of that creative, was thought about quite last minute. But I think the what we are trying to do, and what probably a lot of people are trying to do, is people thinking like, right, as soon as we kind of like briefed on this, how is it best? And these are the way that you should work with your creative agency, in terms of kind of thinking about your audio and thinking about it way up front in terms of how it can work, because we're going to have these different platforms on. You're reaching kind of listeners across these slightly different ways. So let's think about this now, so that we're making sure that those adverts work as hard as possible on the platforms that they're being heard on.
And in order to work as hard as possible, and I think we touched on this in an earlier episode, stick to one key message. Let the copywriter have a bit of fun with it and let it breathe. Be a little brave for that extra cut through.
Yeah, and because audio has that higher trust element, that higher emotional trust, why not have some fun with it? Memorable audio ads are ones that create scenes and an environment that exist in someone else's head. It's, there have been some fantastic examples over the years of ones that will make you laugh, ones that will shock you, ones that will make you give you pause. Being able to unleash that is really, really powerful. And I think creatively, it's a lot easier to think of something visual, some kind of scene or environment that for a TV ad or something like that. I think it is a lot harder across the audio landscape to produce good creative, and this is why we need experts and expertise in that place to advise on that.
The pictures are better on audio, after all, because they're all in here. Anything to add, Howard?
I just think clients need to remember that you're investing in media, investing in creative, and getting them both right will deliver better results. And due care and attention should be paid to both parts of it. And as you say, don't be afraid of doing something different with your audio creative, but make sure that you are planning and creating both at the same time to maximise your investment and get the return on investment, whatever KPIs they are.
So adapting audio creative will pay dividends. But how do you judge the success of an audio campaign? Our next episode's all about measurement and attribution. Follow us so you don't miss that. And for more, visit trisonic.co.uk.